Nicholas, sweet Nicholas. Do
I'm
you know
like,
what you're in store for this weekend? You got no idea.
oh my.
If that wasn't ominous, I don't know what is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, except for when I'm swearing. Cover your ears. The Dorkshire Universe of Geeks Worldwide Radio proudly presents you the greatest, the greatest, and don't you ever fucking forget we are the greatest podcasting team in the world. He's the Bachelor Boy Fry Guy, Nick Friar. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe, and together we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. Nicholas, how you doing?
I am doing very well. You know what? I got to say, I'm learning to appreciate our show even more than I was previously because this is the only time you're pretty much nice to me. Because in the DSG group chat, everybody, I want you guys to know that Joe has decided to flat out target me in there because he cannot stand it how good I'm at the immaculate grid. It's insane. I've never been so bullied in my life.
I was so pissed off for two reasons. One, I think I would have had the highest or the lowest, how do you want to say it, the best rarity score if I could have thought of Fartolo Colon. I completely blanked on him. I guessed wrong. And I had a rarity score with one miss of 112. And I think I would have nailed it had I had him.
That's a good point. Now that we know how the math works on the scoring, because here's a fun fact, everybody. The DSG learned, except for Wes, learned today how the immaculate grid math works.
Yeah. And then so the other one I'm pissed off on because I would have had them. It wouldn't have been the rarest score of the day, but they did two today because they were bought out by Baseball Reference because the
Congrats to them.
The traffic to Baseball Reference to them must have been like a million, like in the millions.
Yep.
But I fucking fat thumbed it. And I really pissed you off because I posted the thing because I didn't realize that no one else had posted. But anyways.
I got thrown off by that.
Full life.
Yeah.
But so I was very well aware that Carlos Beltran played for both the Mets and the Yankees.
Yes.
Okay. But I fat thumbed it, hit the box above the one I needed to, typed in Carlos Beltran, hit that with the most confidence I've ever hit in my fucking life. Wrong. And I realized, no, he didn't play for I was so pissed.
Oh, that's rough.
So pissed.
I'll tell you what, I get very nervous about even like scrolling on that thing. I type the whole thing until it's just the one name as best as I can because like, I ain't fucking around with this shit.
And there was one I did the other day where I hit the wrong. It wasn't for
you got to check.
It wasn't for baseball. It was for hockey, and I hit the wrong name, but it still worked. I went to do Guy Lafleur, of the flower, and it ended up hitting Guy Carbonneau. And it still worked. It still fit. Right? Again, fat thumbs. Right? Great for back cracking. Terrible for typing on phones.
I thought you were going to say that you ran into something like I ran into the other day where you had Chris Young for baseball.
You picked the one that played in like the 1940s or
no, dude. It's not the one in the 1940s. No, that makes it easy because there are some guys that are like, there's a Charlie Morton that played in like the 1800s. I know which Charlie Morton I'm picking in that situation. I'm talking about Chris Young, the pitcher that made his debut in like 04, and then Chris Young, the outfielder that made his debut in like 06. That's some stressful shit right there. You want to talk about anxiety.
And also, when you have a player that could be in multiple boxes and you're trying to figure which one will give you the best rarity score.
I almost did it with Piazza on that second one today. I played LaDuca, and I was ready to play Piazza. I was like, no, wait a second. I don't know. Like, I don't know 200 hit guys for the Mets. I know Piazza. For the Dodgers, I know Piazza did it, but beyond that, it's a guess. So. Thank God. Anyways, so you guys, of course, come here for all that. Just like you, I don't know how to transition into it, but I do want to let everybody know we are on Threads. I think a lot of our followers on Instagram have already started following us over there, having a lot of fun over there. It definitely seems like a more positive place for everybody. But still, of course, follow us on Twitter and everything. But if you've been following us on Instagram, you're getting a ton of great stuff, especially from Joe. He's doing all those awesome edits over there. You're only going to get more of it over on Threads. And then also the only place you can find our interviews are on our audio channels. I want to make sure you guys are aware of that because you never know when one is going to pop up. Maybe one in the works right now. There may have been one in the works for a long time. Who knows? But the only place you're going to find those is on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Stitcher for a limited time, I should say, Geeks Worldwide Radio, SoundCloud, Amazon. Wherever you listen to us, make sure you subscribe, leave a rating and review. Highest review that you can leave possible on Apple, it's 5 stars. If you don't do that, you're going to learn the real meaning of backcrack. And I'm telling you, it's Bane-esque, actually. But Joe, it's time for us to get moving. We've talked way too much sports today. Let's get to catching up. I actually don't have anything. There have been some like trades that I've been kind of like looking back into, but I got nothing for catching up. I am doing the unthinkable. I'm doing back-to-back weekends of bachelor parties, so I am somehow still alive.
You also glossed over a big milestone for us. We've somehow missed the fact that we have done this over 200 times, Nicholas.
It's crazy, yeah.
I mean, this is only issue 82, but we've had all the Friar side chats, all the various specials that we've done. 200. I think we're at 202 now. Right?
I think when we get to 100 mainline issues, what I want, we kind of had talked about this before, but about counting the interviews as like towards the total count. Maybe when we get there, we should count that towards the total. Like once we get to 100 mainline, we can start counting interviews towards that. But that's a conversation for another day. But yes, 200. Holy crap! We've the weeks where we've had some weeks where we record 4 things, like where we've done like 3 interviews and a what's new, or what's new, and then like an interview and then a main line. Like it's been wild. I will say that. Remember when we would just do an interview and nothing else in the week? Yeah. Like that was, or just
amateur hour.
Yeah, or just mainline. Like those days.
Amateur hour.
Actually, our original mainline, I may be wrong, but our original mainline, I don't know if we even know we would record like on a Thursday, so we were talking about the comics from that week too.
But yeah. A lot has changed. We've evolved greatly.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so I thought that was big. I wanted to mention that. Speaking of catching up, I caught up on Daredevil issue 13. I believe there's one issue left of that. I believe it ends next month. I'm not ready for it, Nicholas. I understand, but I'm just not ready for it. But
sure.
If those who are watching, you can see, right? I'm wearing my Blue Jays hat. I'm wearing that for a couple of reasons. One, Chip, fellow Canadian, my Chip. Would love to get him back on the show again. I'm trying to will a few things into existence. Vladito Jr., right? Vladito won the home run derby contest. Tremendous. But Lemire, he's a Toronto fan, so I'm gonna will that into existence as well.
He's from Canada too, isn't he?
He is. He's from Essex County.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. I didn't realize that was a real place. Although Essex County, I should know that. But yeah. Well, I don't see any reason we can't get Chip back on at some point. We just got to figure out what he's gonna possibly want to talk about, and perhaps tell us too soon, like he's done in the past. But anyways, let's get to what's new. I do need to catch up on Daredevil. I'm with you. Before we get into the single issues that come out this week, there are quite a few trades that we have talked about the series previously that we wanted to touch on. First, Black Tape, the book that I got screwed out of talking about on mainland. Actually, one of 2 books that I got screwed out of talking about. But because we had Dan Panosian on the show, so it was, a sacrifice I was very happy to make.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to that interview already, highly recommend it. And if you haven't read all the 4 issues of it, or even if you have read all 4 issues of Black Tape, absolutely got to pick this up. This is some rock satanic stuff. It is really cool. Really enjoyed this series, and honestly, this is one of those ones too. AWA has quite a few of these where you can read this in one sitting. Like it's like no question, you're going to breeze right through this thing.
Yeah. It's a must-read book. We've talked about it many times. You're going to absolutely love it. Image has 2 trade paperbacks coming out this week, one of which is The Scorched Volume 2, written by Sean Lewis. We've been talking about that. This second arc was absolutely tremendous. You're going to want to pick that up. And also, this is a book that I've talked about a few times on this show. The Wind Book 3, The Throne in the Sky. It actually came out a while ago, but this is the hardcover release of this latest chapter of the Wind saga. So written by James Tynion. Oh, boom! I say Image. I'm a fucking idiot. Well, sorry. I apologize. Boom, 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 boom. James Tynion, Wind Book 3, Throne in the Sky. This is an excellent series. This is a good sort of young adult series, but also for older readers as well. Absolutely love it. So that is it for the trade paperbacks dropping this week.
Yeah, some good stuff there for sure. So why don't you take us to Marvel?
All right, so I'll try not to fuck anything else up. We have The Amazing Spider-Man issue 29, Moon Knight issue 25, Immortal X-Men issue 13, X-Force issue 42, Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 8, Darth Vader issue 36, Scarlet Witch issue 6, Star Wars Bounty Hunters issue 36, Rogue and Gambit issue 5, Red Goblin issue 6, Loki issue 2, Fallen Friend, The Death of Miss Marvel issue 1. This is one that I want to give a peek to because this one could be interesting. Web of Carnage issue 1. Again, this one I haven't read yet, but could be interesting as well. And then we have X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday issue 1. I don't need a prologue to Days of Future Past, but that's just me. We have Groot issue 3, Warlock Rebirth issue 4, Planet of the Apes issue 4, and then What If Dark Loki issue 1.
I might have to check out the What If. These What Ifs seem pretty cool because there's a Spider-Gwen too. That one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, those, but nothing that was like I have to read this before the show for Marvel this week. As for DC, we have Superman Lost issue 5, World's Finest Teen Titans issue 1, Unstoppable Doom Patrol issue 4. And then we got all the Night Terror stuff that came out this week. From that event, we have Green Lantern 1, Robin 1, which actually I'm going to check out the Robin one because it looks like Red Hood is in that, so I'm interested automatically. Shazam 1, Zatanna 1, and then some of the other stuff we have coming out as well from DC. Danger Street issue 7, Spirit World issue 3, Batman Inc. issue 1, Wildcats issue 9, which I am like criminally behind on right now. Multiversity Harley Screws Up the DCU issue 5. And then we have the main title for the Night Terrors event, Night Terrors issue 1. And at the center of all this, Joe, we have the Dead Man. And I'll tell you what, I've like never really thought I need a whole lot of stories from Boston. I always feel like he's a cool character who I love seeing him alongside Constantine in some capacity. Sometimes those are the cool characters that he can be in the mix with. But I enjoyed this first issue of this. I like the idea of him being at the center of it all. And what's really cool, and obviously I don't want to spoil things, but there is another character who gets added to the mix, that like a character who I've heard about before, but don't really know much about in the DC world, a DC universe. But when I saw this person added to the mix, I was like, holy shit, this could get very weird. So it's a nice little throwback for some longtime DC readers. So this is, I would say, it's worth checking out. Like, I know we talked about the Night Terrors event like last week. It was like, okay, like I'm interested in the main story. I'm interested enough to go check out the second issue of this when it comes out. And I think for a lot of people, I think there are some people who will feel similarly to me after reading this.
Did you read any of the other Night Terror books?
No, because I only felt compelled to read this first one. Because honestly, my thing was like, okay, I need to know if I like this. Because if I like this, then I'll go back and give some of these a peek. But the only one that I saw like art from also was the Robin one. I may read Zatanna as well too, but those are the only two that I'm very interested in.
So I did like the prelude to this. I thought it was fine. So I'll give this one a read. I will, and if it strikes me, I will stick to the main line and let you sort of read the ancillary books and let me know if there's any of those worth reading. But
sure.
I mean, this is Williamson too, right?
Yeah, this is Williamson as well.
Yeah. So I enjoy him enough to give the main line of it a shot. All the other stuff, I'm not didn't really pull me in.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I liked some of them. Like I think I like the Poison Ivy one, and look, the Ravager one is like the team, the creative team on that I like, and visually I really enjoyed it, but it just didn't do as much for me necessarily. So I think in general, I'll scout out the Robin one. That's the one that, like I said, that's the one I'm very excited about. And honestly, Joe, looking at the cover, actually some of these variant covers are there's a variant cover that's absolutely terrifying for this. But yeah, I'm going to give this one a look for sure because Red Hood is involved in some capacity. But other than that, it's like I think mainline is all people need to do here.
Let me know how they treat Red Hood because DC is criminally, absolutely just destroyed his essence lately.
You don't need to tell me, but yeah. So, anyways, let's move over to Image.
Okay, so from Image, we have something epic issue 3 from Simon Kodransky. This is a book that I've enjoyed, but I'm waiting until it's done. I want to read it all in one sitting because it's just there's a lot going on there, but have enjoyed it. Savage Dragon issue 266, Deep Cuts issue 3, I believe, by Kyle Higgins, which you have been reading. In Hell We Fight issue 2, Star Signs issue 3, which just keeps getting better. That is rising up the ladder of becoming a TLDR book. We have Stoneheart issue 5, Immortal Sergeant issue 7, and then again, as I was trying to will this into existence, from Jeff Lemire, we have Fish Flies issue 1. This has been a long awaited book. I did grab the free, the brief free comic book day, but I didn't read it because I just wanted to wait. And so this is excellent. This is written, drawn by Jeff Lemire.
Oh boy!
And because it's got his art style to it, and it's typical. It's typical. It's done in typical Lemire fashion. Again, it's in this small Canadian sort of podunk kind of town. You kind of get some Essex County vibes to it. You get some Royal City vibes to it, and that's just I think mostly because of his art style. But you've got, I mean, he the way he kickstarts this issue. Now, typically with Lemire, there's a good build, there's layering to the storytelling, there's some building of the characters, and then once he ramps it up, he really ramps it up. Well, this is, this one kicks into high gear with a oh fuck moment right off the rip.
Nice.
And it also has like some Stand By Me vibes to it, just in like, from the first few pages, because it's revolving around sort of these a group of teenagers, and there's one kid in the group that's kind of the bully, kind of picks on another one of the kids in the group. And essentially Fish Flies is something that Lemire is it's a real thing. It happened in his town of Essex County for like a few weeks a year. These flies would come in, they would take over the town, and then they would just suddenly die, and they would cover everything. And you like literally like had to sweep them off the sidewalk, brush them off the buildings. They would crunch when you'd walk on them. And so it's like, one of the kids daring the other kid to go into the Quickie Mart or the Quick Stop or whatever you want to call it, to go get some snacks. And he's like walking barefoot, Christ, really gross. And then something fucking nasty happens. And then it just kind of gets weirder and weirder and weirder throughout the issue. So one thing that Lemire's doing with this is that, he's each issue is going to be a little bit longer than your typical comic book issue. It's almost like 2 or 3 books in one.
Okay.
Because he's been working on this for a very long time. So if you're a fan of Jeff Lemire, I highly recommend Fish Flies. It was excellent. Jeff, if you're listening and you want to send me the PDF for the next issue, I'll gladly take it. I am shameless, and that's okay. But that's how good it was. I mean, I love it. I'm a big Lemire stan, so I'm always gonna, advocate his stuff. But this was really excellent.
I hope you know that side is not even about what you're saying there. It's more about, the fact that's the one that got away right now. That Jeff that
is our that is our white whale, if you will. At the moment, but one day we will capture. And have on the show.
Or he'll catch us, because isn't that how Moby Dick ends, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. You know what I meant.
Anyways, all right. So then we got Boom from this week. We got a couple, obviously, Ghost Lore issue 3 by Cullen Bunn, friend of the show, which I have dibs on, continues to be awesome. And then the book that I wanted to dig into a little bit more, we got a number 1 from Boom, which you guys know, Doc Rule, number 1. Boom, you read it, right?
Yeah, and you call dibs on this, right?
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, so how is it that me, the genius behind this show, turns you on to 2 studios and you couldn't give two shits about when we first started. I make these rules, and all of a sudden you're claiming dibs on all the goddamn books from my studios.
Oh, wow. You know what? To say that about Boom is definitely a little bit aggressive because I like their Power Rangers stuff, and there's other good stuff.
You didn't have the rule. I didn't have the rule, baby.
I would say I'd give you the credit for AWA, but if you want to get down and dirty, I mean, I think your buddy Freddie is the one who deserves credit for AWA, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was the Bright Side Chat guys.
Bright Side Chat guys. Okay, my mistake. Okay.
Yeah. They turned me onto it, and I ran with it, baby.
You did. You absolutely have. But yeah, Boom, number one. I have stolen a few of those, more of those from Joe than I have elsewhere. But Sirens of the City issue 1, and personally, the second I see Carrie Randolph attached to a project, I'm very interested in seeing what's coming out because I love his art style. You may remember the name if you've listened to some of our older episodes or maybe even been with us from day one. I talked about Excellence, which is a Skybound series a while back, of course. There was the pause with that, and then it seems like Excellence has maybe come to an end, unfortunately. I don't know. It was a really, really fun series. I hope it didn't suffer from a cancellation. I never saw what it was, but really enjoyed that. So getting to see Carrie Randolph back in the mix, where I've seen him do cover work, but I think he tweeted himself he hasn't been doing like monthly stuff for a little bit. His co-creator on this is Joanne Starrer, and then this is lettered by And World Design. And this story is done in black and white with some colors mixing in. You can see it on the cover. There's a blue with a slight bit of purple, and then there's red. Other than that, it is black and white and I guess gray all in the mix here. And when you talk about like an oh fuck moment too, this is interesting because where yours I'm imagining more as like, geez, like this thing's going to get like grisly or violent or whatever. With this, it starts out with where you have this girl who's walking to an abortion clinic and there's protesters right outside and she gets someone who gets right in her face and then like, so that's already like unsettling. And then you get an oh fuck thing and it's like, wait a minute, like what the hell just happened? And like everybody's like, why did this just happen? No one has any clue what the fuck is going on. So it's a great start to this series. And then this, as things kind of go along to, again, like you have the limited color mixing, which is, it's really cool and well done. And I love how this is very punk. The entire first issue. And that's, I mean, very clear that's going to be the entirety of this series. You have this main character, Layla, at the center of it all. And she's dealing with, an unplanned pregnancy. And she's I think 17 years old. So unplanned pregnancy with a guy who she got to know. She's, and then there's a whole other thing that's going on with her that she's just starting to learn about that's creating a lot of problems in her life. And she doesn't even know the half of how much of a problem it is going to be based on the external forces that start to surround her in this first issue. So I absolutely recommend, if your name is not Dr. Joe, go pick up Sirens of the City issue 1.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully I'll get to read it at some point.
You even forgot that I called dibs on the friggin' book that I talked about today. It's like
100%.
Nothing is safe.
No, it's not, because it's sitting in my stack. It's like crazy. I'm going through. I'm like, I'm kind of like putting them in order that I want to read them. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, I've been meaning to read this. Let me slide it.
Thank goodness.
Okay, so boom. So let's. I'm gonna rattle through a couple of these here real quick. So from IDW, we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Annual Issue 1. We have TMNT Issue 141, Star Trek Issue 10. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Stranger Things Issue 1. Definitely going to be picking this one up because I think those two have has real potential. Like some of these mix-ups, yeah, like TMNT Street Fighter, right? But this one seems like there's some real potential there. The Hunger and the Dusk Issue 1. Earth Divers Issue 8, Star Trek The Motion Picture Echoes Issue 3, The Rocketeer, The Den of These. I was half asleep when I fucking wrote this, so I have no idea what that is. I have no idea. I literally had to stop time when I texted you and I said I'm going to finish the notes in the morning. It's because I was delirious writing some of these.
Not thieves.
Yeah,
thieves.
Thank you. I was close. All right.
Wow.
Cat Fight Issue 2, and then My Little Pony 40th Anniversary Special Issue 1. From Ablaze, we have Dark Ride Issue 7. Nope, that's not Ablaze. Again, I don't know what I did there. We have Animal Castle Volume 2 Issue 3. Dark Ride is
Skybound.
from Skybound. Thank you.
Yes, that
See.
is
So
it.
we from this point down, we might be riddled with serious errors here. So double check my work there, Nicholas.
By the way, before you go any further, I do want to note, because we don't normally talk about Oni, but I still got to get my hands on the second issue. But it looks like, according to League of Comic Geeks, that Lamentation issue 3 from friend of the show Cullen Bunn is supposed to be out this week. I definitely want to check this out. I really enjoyed that first issue. I want to read the second. But for those who've been on pace, the third issue is supposed to be out this week.
Yeah. So double check my work there, Nicholas. But from Ablaze, the Animal Castle Volume 2, Issue 3. This has been great so far. A couple things here. So Top Cow, we don't mention Top Cow too much, but there's a book from Top Cow here and a book from Comixology I want to talk about real quickly before we get to the mainline stuff. But from Top Cow, we have Haunt You to the End, issue 2, Exciting Comics, issue 36, Jungle Comics, issue 18, Ninja High School, I don't know what issue, didn't write it down, but one book from Top Cow that I didn't want to talk about is Antarctica, issue 1. This was a great sci-fi thriller series. Hadn't heard of it. I don't even think we had it on our solicit, because I don't know if we included Top Cow on our solicit, which we should probably start doing going forward, because there are some great books from Top Cow. For some reason, we always just kind of skip over. But anyways, this was a really, really enjoyable sci-fi thriller with a character who you get the sense early on in her childhood is very, very smart, and then gifted, and then something, a family event happens and sort of derails her, and her finding her way back, and the layers to her character, her journey, and then where she ends up, the mystery surrounding sort of her father's death, her sort of wanting to, I wouldn't say follow in his footsteps, but follow in his footsteps in a way to kind of figure out what happened to him, and then how the first issue ends. Like we always talk about this, right? A first issue's job is to get its hooks into you and make you want to read that second issue. And Antarctica from Top Cow absolutely does that. This was an excellent first issue. Art was great, storytelling was great, everything about it was excellent. So if you're listening to this, if you've gone to your comic book shop and didn't pick it up, I would recommend going back, getting it. If they don't have it, have them throw it on your pull list, order it. You're going to want to read this going forward. If you haven't grabbed it yet, do so. Absolutely excellent.
Very cool. So this is Simon Burks, it looks like, and Will Roberts.
Yeah, a team I'm not familiar with, and they did a really good job.
Yeah, wow. That is that. Yeah, and that cover, the main cover, looks pretty sick. And so it looks like the and the variant's nice too. But that main cover, I really like that one a lot. Huh? Nice pick out. Nice pick, Joe. I might pick this up myself too.
Yeah. Oh, dibs.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
No.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not.
Here's
I'm not going to throw a hissy fit, unlike some people. I'm just.
Well, that's what I do. I'm an old and I'm off my meds.
I just thought of this weekend.
Yeah, that was fucking ridiculous. I get a fucking text from CVS saying, "Oh, your prescription's ready to pick up," and they send it to me at 7:12. Okay, so I drive to CVS. The fucking pharmacy closes at 7:00. Fuck off.
So weird.
Anyways, pick it up, Nicholas. Let me at least read the second issue before I call dibs. Let me do that.
Fair.
But pick it up and have it just in case.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
But speaking of teams that we are familiar with from Comixology this week, I believe this is the last book from the initial Scott Tober release from a few years ago that we had Scott and Greg Capullo on. We have Duck and Cover, issue 1. This is the team of Scott Snyder and Raphael Albuquerque. And it's ironic because the book that I'm going to be talking about today on the main line is also another one of those books. It's now in print from Dark Horse. But Barnstormers and Duck and Cover were, I think, 2 books that I wouldn't say that I was the most jazzed up for. Like, Night of the Ghoul, We Have Demons, some of those other books were, what was the book there with the
Canary, the Book of Evil.
Canary, Book of Evil. What was the other one that I read there that I really loved that you
Clear?
Just recently? The Clear, right? Those were like the books. Boom! But these two books that I was less high on, but ended up both absolutely kind of blowing my mind. And so Duck and Cover is a book it's a period piece, if you will, sort of taking place during that whole time when right before there was the threat of nuclear war, right before what we had done to Japan. And so there was, we learned this at school, right? They used to show videos to kids, in the 50s. What do you do if you hear the siren? You duck and cover. You put your fingers behind your head. You get under your desk as if that's really going to save you from a nuclear attack. But what we get in this story, again, is another kind of ragtag group of kids, one of which is a movie buff, and then sort of his sort of outcast buddies. And man, like I said, I the way Snyder writes is why he's constantly, no matter what he's writing, no matter what genre he's writing, is always interesting and fascinating, because it's his storytelling. He's throwing these threads out there, and then when he pulls them together, it's magic, right? Yeah. And so we get some great character development. We learn about these kids. The main character, he has something happen to him, and it just propels him even further to dive into his passion of filmmaking. He wants to, move out to Los Angeles, or Hollywood, I should say, to become a filmmaker. And as he's about to do something, his life and the life of everyone in his town changes, and this gets real sci-fi. It gets real War of the Worlds-esque real fast, and gets a little bit grisly real fast. And that's a testament to Albuquerque's art, because he's really great at that. He's a fantastic artist, and that team just works really well together. So Duck and Cover, it's out on Comixology, as you're listening to this. Absolutely fantastic. Give it a read. You're going to absolutely love it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking forward to when, I mean, I'll, with all the Scott's books, I'm looking forward to checking these out. Obviously, we have a couple other to still talk about. We're waiting for them to drop as the first issue on Dark Horse before we dig into those, which we may or may not be doing a little bit later on in the program. And let's actually, speaking of Dark Horse, let's get to them. We got Hellboy in Love issue 5, The Great British Bump Off issue 4, Murder Inc. Jagger Rose issue 3, The Lonesome Hunters, The Wolf Child, issue 1, Gru in the Wild, or is it Goo in the Wild? Issue 1, Panya, The Mummy's Curse, issue 1, and then Savage Squad 6, issue 1, which brings us to, let's do a little mainline talk, Joe. What book are you talking about today?
So we talked about, Scott-tober, Comixology, having Scott on, Greg Capullo on at the time to really get this whole event kickstarted. It is now gone from being digital only to now you can get your hands on the physical copy. It came out last week, but this is Barnstormers, issue 1, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Tula Lote and colors by D. Cuniff, and the letter is Richard Starkings. And the thing I want to just say right off the bat, like we know Scott's writing, but not everyone might be familiar with Tula Lote or D. Cuniff. The art in this book is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, I'm very familiar with Tula Lote's art. She does a lot of covers. They're very distinct. They're striking. Her art in general, but especially the art in this book. Like, you could take a panel, frame it, hang it in a museum, hang it in your house. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous, and it fits this book so well. So with that, I'll dive into the synopsis, and you want to talk about the world's shortest synopsis: a high-flying adventure romance set just after the First World War.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that we like, is a nice tight synopsis, but that synopsis does this book a grave injustice, to be honest with you, because this book is so much more. You might like read that synopsis and Barnstormers, and you might kind of go like I was initially, right? We've had Scott on the show multiple times, and this always seems to come up in his in our talks, because this is a period of time, the 1920s, that he's very fond of. He's very fascinated. And I believe he said when he was in college, he'd written sort of a short story, and he's always kind of wanted to dive deeper into this. And so, he had his opportunity here. And This is not just a high flying adventure romance. This book gets twisted, and the characters are very interesting, and the story goes in places I didn't think it was going to go. So 5 issues first came out and are out on Comixology, but this will be released as sort of what Dark Horse has been doing with all these Comixology books, is sort of combining issues together, sort of you get a little bit longer issue. So this will be released in 3 longer issues, through Dark Horse Comics. And like I said, that synopsis just does not do the book justice. But I understand,
it's crazy,
because at the same time, you don't want to give it away, because when you get to the end of the first issue, or if you're reading it in physical form, if you got the floppy, the halfway, when you get to that sort of first halfway point, you're like, whoa, shit, I didn't fucking see that coming. And then you read the second issue and you go, oh, fuck, shit, didn't see that coming. And then you say that sort of at the end of every single issue.
Damn.
And again, that's sort of like what I said, like what makes Scott Snyder such a great writer, because he can do Batman, he can do he can do Barnstormers, 2 completely opposite books, and totally get you engrossed in the storytelling, and want you to hang on every single word and how the page is going to unfold, and his work with all these different artists that he's been doing. It's been a really fun ride. I think every book really has been a home run. And we, I think, are pretty honest. Like, when a book's not great, we'll tell you. And and so I'm not just like saying this because, oh, it's Scott Snyder, I gotta pop up. No, this is a really excellent book.
I can tell like how blown away you are by it. And that actually kind of leads, before you even go any further, so you have now read this in full, you have read the clear, in full. We always like to add a "the" at the beginning of it, and then Night of the Ghoul. Which one has surprised you the most, and which one was your favorite of those 3?
This one has so far surprised me the most, because I think just because my expectations and what I thought the book was going to be was much different than what it is and what it is turned out to be. And I just read Duck and Cover, and I wasn't sure exactly what that was going to be. And so I have not read one of these books that has made me go meh, or oh, I wished it would have done this, or I wish it would have done that, or like, it's not what I expected in a bad way. That's not what I expected in almost the best way.
Yeah.
I think for me, my favorite is still Night of the Ghoul. But I love these books all for different reasons. They're all different genres, right? And the artists add different elements to all of these books. You're not going to read one of these, Scott Tober books, this Comixology Dark Horse book, and see the same thing, right? Because all of these artists are very distinct in their own way.
My goodness,
right?
Yeah.
Between Jock and Raphael Albuquerque and Tula Lote, right? Just Capullo, Dan Panosian, right? Like, just absolutely wild stuff. And so, like, it just kind of blew me away in the fact that I go, fuck, man, I didn't expect that. This was excellent. And so there's a very Bonnie and Clyde-esque feel, to this book. But the distinction I would make is that, if you're familiar with Bonnie and Clyde, those 2 characters were fucking psychopaths, right? You were not rooting for them. You might have been rooting for them in the sense that, like, yeah, get away from the man, but they weren't like characters that you like were like, oh, they're doing it for the right reasons, or their motivations were such that you're like, yeah, I can get down with that. No, they were just, we're gonna rob, steal, and fucking kill. But with Barnstormers, you get 2 characters that, as the story unfolds and you learn more about them, their motivations, you sympathize with in some cases, and others you're like, oh, that's kind of messed up, but you're rooting for them, right? And there is a love interest, there is some romance there, which was a nice element of the story, but it wasn't like what the synopsis sort of makes it out to be. You get a bond between the 2, and you get that Thelma and Louise, that Bonnie and Clyde, that, how they sort of, but it is so much more than that. And, again, like, just Snyder just does a great job at, like, throughout the issue, and especially at the end of the issue, just hooking you in even more, and more. And as the story unfolds, as the characters' backstories unfold, the drama, increases, and the twists are absolutely tremendous. And you get several of them, along the way. And, I wrote down here, this is like, again, this is why we do the show. This is the epitome of what a TLDR book really is, because you look at the cover, it's a beautiful cover, right? And Barnstormers, you might look and go, oh, great. And then, they might have the synopsis sort of like on the first page or so, or you might just kind of casually flip through it and go, oh yeah, the art's nice, but Barnstormers, this might not be, and put it back and move on. Yeah. Or you might just gloss over it altogether, right? So again, don't judge a book by its cover. I will say the cover is gorgeous. But like the title and the synopsis, it just seems like something that might not be for us, but it is perfect.
It's right? Crazy.
It's perfect.
In like to that end too, where the point you're making, it's like we don't just do this show for like, obviously you and I have fun hanging out and just talking about this stuff, but like the intent of this show is to make sure books that you and I would have missed otherwise, we help each other out and be like, yes, this is something that you want to go and check out. But also, like, we know that, like, when you look at the DSG, right, obviously we're the primary comic book readers, but like it's all about DC and Marvel in the DSG. There's a lot more awesome comics out there. And obviously with Scott Tober alone, and then the other Dark Horse book that I'm going to be talking about today, there's just so many cool things that just like when you just if you just looked at Marvel and DC, it's like, wait a minute, you do this other shit in comics too? Really? Like, there's so many other amazing stories that aren't just superhero related. So that is like you said, these are the reason Barnstormers is a great reason on multiple levels, or great example of what the TLDR book is.
Yeah. And so, like, if you've seen it or you heard of it and you're like, oh, and you just kind of, like I said, pick it up, grab it, like, read it. And as I started off talking about this, the art, right? Tula Lote and Dee Cunniffe, like her style is so perfect for this book, for a 1920s book. The colors by Dee Cunniffe are vibrant, and it really does capture the essence of sort of what you think the 1920s. It's got this Great Gatsby feel to it, right? It really does capture the essence of the 1920s, but you've got a whole lot of shenanigans. You got so much more. There's violence, baby. There is violence, and you've got this great cat and mouse game that goes on. So that's sort of the general overview. A couple of the characters,
I love this first name. I love it.
So the main character is Hawk E. Barrett. He, is a barnstormer. So, like, it's funny because when I hear the word barnstormer, my first thought is Babe Ruth. These ball players of the 1920s and 1930s, they didn't make a ton of money making Babe. Even Babe Ruth, who was the highest paid player at the time, still needed to go out in the offseason and make money. A lot of these guys worked. But one of the things that Babe Ruth, he would go on these barnstorming tours where he would go from podunk town to podunk town across the country and just fucking smash home runs, right? And playing games. People would see him, they'd pay good money, and he that was his side hustle,
or
right?
Strike out against Roy Hobbs.
Right, exactly. Right. So that's a reference to something that I am missing.
The Natural? Are you kidding me?
You know what? I don't know if I've ever seen The Natural.
Are you shitting me? You've never seen The Natural?
I don't think I've ever seen The Natural. I've
been
clips.
Boy. I'll tell you what, you're about to meet my old man. He's gonna fucking hate you.
I will make sure to watch it before I meet Mike Friar, because I'm very intimidated of this gentleman, and I very much want him to like me. But anyways, so our main character, Hawk E. Barron, his barnstorming is getting in a plane and hitting these towns across the country, doing aerial stunts and whatnot to try and make money. But the problem is that there's he can't generate a crowd. He doesn't know how to promote his brand, so to speak. And so as he's doing one of these events, he accidentally crashes a wedding, figuratively and literally. And this is sort of where the story begins. So it's like the story kind of builds. It's a lot of sort of narration from him, and learning about sort of what's kind of going on. But then once this moment happens is when the book takes off, and this is where the shit starts to go down. Now there's a lot that kind of goes on within this small time frame. This is sort of, if you're reading it digitally through Comixology, this is sort of towards the end of the first issue, whereas if you're reading the floppy, this is sort of taking place just right in the beginning, so to speak. But as these, as this is happening, you start to get the feeling there's something a little bit off with Hawk E. Barron. And that might not be his real name, right? So there's something going on here. And then you don't say. And then you meet Tilly, who is sort of our other main character and the eventual lover of Hawk. And she's able to use the crashing of this wedding as a chance to escape her own wedding.
Oh, her wedding. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so you get a sense that there's more than meets the eye, because she's trying to escape. But you find out real quick she's badass. Tilly means business, and Tilly has a very good reason of wanting to to get away. You meet Peyton Carlisle, who is very wealthy, and he is the gentleman to whom Tilly is supposed to marry. And he is not a good guy.
Oh God, he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy. So I don't want to say too much there. And then we get introduced to Zeke. He is sort of, I wouldn't really call him a detective. He's an investigator, working. They just sort of call it the agency. And he's older, sort of at the tail end of his career. And he's the man that's been tasked to sort of, go on the hunt for Baron, for Hawk and Tilly. And you get a lot of his narration throughout the story, which is great. And just, this is sort of his last case, his last shot of glory. And he's a great little side character, especially, how the story ends and how this all unfolds. I thought it was very fitting. But for those who haven't read it and are picking up the floppy, you get introduced to all these characters in this first issue. And like I said, it does a great job of building its suspense and intrigue and making you want to just get out there and continue reading. So that's Barnstormers. Blew me away. I was not ready for how good this book really turned out to be.
That's the best. Because then it's like crack. It's like you just need more and more of that shit.
Yeah.
So with this cover, that for those who are watching on the stream, like Joe has the main cover, or aren't watching, Joe has the main cover as his background on our stream, which of course you can find on Doc's Twitch, over on our YouTube page at TLDR Comic Book Club, or on Twitter too. Maybe we'll get there on Threads at some point. But is that's a Lotte cover? I'm assuming that's exactly what the art looks like in right? And that is Tilly on the main cover.
Yep. That is Tilly, baby.
Okay, good to know on that end. And then, hey, you've created like this amazing picture, and you've talked about this book in some capacity quite a bit. Over the run on Comixology. It really sounds like this makes the most sense as a movie. Do you get the feeling as well that that's the case?
Yeah, because this really does take place over a short period of time, you know, and I don't know how you would break this up episodically. But this is, like I said, like this would be like a good Bonnie and Clyde type movie, right? Because they told a really wild story in whatever time frame that was. So, make this a nice tight 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like you could do a really, because there is a lot that happens, even though it takes place over a short period of time. Because you take time to kind of character build a little bit and then dive into some of the weird shit that happens, to these two along the way. And it's just excellent. I would love to see this as a movie.
Yeah, this sounds really cool. I did pick up the floppy from Dark Horse, so it would have been the week before we're recording this. So I cannot wait to check this out, because when we had Dan Panosian, I was like, you guys got to get TLDR, and I was like, oh, okay, like we like some of these. I know sometimes you
want to give us your email address? That'd be great.
Yeah, sometimes we got to grind to get some of these people on. But anyways, So Barnstormers from Dark Horse. I'm very excited to check this out, and I'm very excited for you to get a chance, Joe, to check out Spy Superb, also from Dark Horse Comics. That is the book that I am talking about this week. What?
Yeah, antithesis of short synopsis on this one.
Yes, it's yeah, that's for real. So Spy Superb, the colors for Spy Superb are by Charlene Kindt, who I believe is Matt Kindt's partner. I could be wrong, maybe I don't know, but either way, Matt Kindt is the writer, penciler, and letterer of this issue. And I gotta be honest, Joe, I didn't know Matt Kindt did art. I didn't know he drew before reading this issue.
He's done a lot of his own stuff.
Okay, all right. So like, there's like, obviously, like when Lemire does his own art style, when he's drawing his own stories, there is a like rawness to his work. With Kindt, there is more of like a sketchiness to it, and I will talk about it a little bit more later on. But I was surprised when I first saw. I'm like, what's up with this art style? And then I looked, and then I saw, like, I knew Kindt was the writer, but I didn't know he was the artist. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm interested in seeing how this goes, because I'm not familiar with him drawing ever previously. This is a 3-issue series that began back in January. It's double-sized issues, though. It's like 48 pages a piece. Not sure on a trade date yet. Not seeing one on Comixology. Haven't heard anything from Dark Horse either to that end. But I would assume at some point later this year, you guys are going to be able to pick that up, and I highly recommend it. This is another one of those worlds, like when I talked about Harrower from Boom Studio recently, where, okay, like this is just this one series. You could just stop here and never go back to it again from a comic book standpoint, or you could do more with it. And with both of these, oddly enough, you could go and tell the history, like you go back in time and look at some more stuff with this world, or you could go move forward a little bit if you wanted to as well, and try some different stuff out. Whereas with the Harrower, I was like, I'd happily take more Harrower, but I kind of wanted to just stay there because this is so friggin' perfect. With Spy Superb, I don't know how I feel on this one, because it's like, it's so friggin' good. I mean, this is, I'm not even gonna let you ask me. This is absolutely movie worthy story, and but I don't know, like, should they do more? I feel like it makes sense because the concept is kind of friggin' brilliant. I was blown away when I was reading this. So as for the synopsis, I'm going to keep it a little bit short. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's John Wick meets Wes Anderson in this mystery thriller about a secret organization that's developed the perfect spy. Who is the perfect spy? A spy who doesn't even realize they are a spy, aka the useful idiot. That's the first quarter, maybe not even, of the first issue. You learn about the history of the Spy Superb and kind of what's like where it's at right now and how it all came to be, because you have this one handler who's in the mix throughout the issue, the stories, but not really as prominent as some of the other characters that you meet in the second and the third issue. But he kind of sets the stage because he's dealing with some people who want to know what the hell's going on with Spy Superb. So you're learning as they're all learning, which kind of, works out naturally when you're talking about trying to develop history and everything like that to a character. But it is wild how it's like there was this original Spy Superb, but then something went wrong, and then they've developed the perfect spy. And it's like, it's an idiot who has no clue. But it's like, it's not just that, there's more to it. It's like, it's in the first few pages, but it's like, it's never one person. The Spy Superb is not one individual. Like it's always ever changing. It's just going through. Sometimes it's idiots. Sometimes it's just average person, which if you think that means that they're an idiot, fine, whatever. But like, it's just always ever changing. So you have this one person who's basically like a puppeteer behind the scenes and using all these different machinations, but only America knows that, because Spy Superb is an American spy. Everybody else has no fucking clue. So the second that they figure out who they believe the Spy Superb to be, that motherfucker is fucked. Yeah. Enter J. Bartholomew III, the epitome of an a-hole, like just a total dink. This guy is, for all intents and purposes, he is Spy Superb according to the world. And he is a failed author who thinks he is the smartest person on the planet. So friggin' annoying. Like he felt way too real too. And I know we've seen that kind of character before, but like this guy was just like, oh God, I hope he just gets popped in the mouth one fucking time. Please, for the love of God. But he's a perfect character. He's absolutely perfect for all this because he just he gets himself out of situations that he shouldn't have. He doesn't have any business getting himself out of because he's clumsy. And then there's other characters that he interacts with along the way that they're just like so much like, what the fuck is going on? This doesn't make any sense. I don't want to get into those characters because like they're not revealed in the same capacity in the first issue as they are in the second and the third. But there's assassins that are thrown into the mix. You get some origin stories with them, and they got some. There's one in particular. There's one dude who's got like a really bizarre backstory. So they're all in the mix as well. But again, in the course of all this, like J. Bartholomew III thinks, oh yeah, like I of course I was like, this is what I've always been. Like I've been activated. This is why I could never make it. It's just like, fuck you, dude. Come on. But it's like you figure out what the whole premise is pretty like, in the first issue, it lays everything out. And then you're kind of just, you're hanging out with this dude and the other characters he comes across along the way. And I'm just like, this would be a friggin' great comedy. I would love to see this on the big screen. This is perfect. And again, because of the nature of what's the Spy Superb is, it's like if you wanted to do more with him, you could go like with Jay, like you could absolutely, depending on where like what's going on in the story, or you could go and just not do you could like stop and never like return to this character again. There's a whole bunch of different options without getting into the ending. But that's exactly how I'm talking first issue. I'm thinking about this kind of stuff, Joe. It's a brilliant thing. But of course, you got to read the whole thing to see how everything plays out because, it's a spy story. So some people are not going to be safe in the mix.
So this sounds awesome, but B, I would recommend people go back, listen to issue 16, where I discussed Bang by Matt Kindt.
Yep.
Right. Another spy story. It involves writers, right? Being involved in all of this and who's pulling the strings and whatnot. And that was an excellent book. Nick, if there might be one to consider for the next trade when that happens in 3 years. But go back.
We're moving.
We're moving, but definitely go back and listen to that episode. I would encourage people to go back and listen to that one as well. But this sounds excellent.
It's fun.
I was looking at Matt Kindt's catalog, and I've read a bit. He's got quite the catalog, and I've definitely read a few. And so there were some where I thought he was the writer and the artist. He wasn't, but he has. He has. Done a bunch of books though that he was the artist for.
Gotcha.
One I'm looking at here, Revolver, and I think it originally came out in Vertigo. It's sort of been reprinted under DC's Black Label, but he's the writer and the artist on that. So Matt Kindt is a great writer, and he's definitely got a lot more works that we should dive into a bit. I've read a few. You've read Spy Superb. Hairball is another one that I've read.
Oh yeah,
by him,
yeah.
Right? That's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
But Matt Kindt is a writer that everyone should have on their list when they see his name. You give that book strong consideration.
Yeah, and then when it comes, mentioning his art again too, like to me, this story has like a level of grit to it, and then also has it's goofy. Like obviously you're dealing with with a buffoon throughout the entirety of this story, so it's like okay, like you need to have the right mix for that. And I think Kindt's art absolutely hits this tone perfectly. That's probably why he made that decision. I'd be very curious to what led him to deciding to draw this one after, I don't know when the last time he drew something though. But this definitely not like the normal style that I'm looking for. And I know we've talked a lot about like how I think Die was the real game changer for me in that regard, where it's like this may not be my style, like that I generally prefer when I'm reading a comic, but it perfectly fits the story. And I think that's like very much the case here with Kindt, where it's like this is not like, even more so, this is not something I would like pick up because of the art necessarily, but the story, man, like it's so good, and like it goes right with the tone of everything.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, that's awesome. So this is a book I was very much looking forward to reading, and now I can read it. I can keep it in my to read stack.
Yes, it's fine. Oh yeah, exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
your wait has come to an end.
Yeah, what cover did I grab? I grabbed the cover where it looks like it's like a brown paper bag, and it just says "Spy Superb," look like an old envelope or something like that. That was the cover I grabbed. So
very fitting.
Now I look for I can actually read it.
Yeah, so try and track down those single issues, guys, if you can. I know it's not always easy to do that so far after a series ended, but I did not see a date on the trade quite yet. So once we know, though, we'll try to put that out there. But at least on Comixology, I couldn't see anything for that at this stage. But that is going to do it for issue 82 of our mainline work. So we are getting closer and closer to 100, Joe. I think we may crack 90 this year. But we'll see. We got some other fun things that we've been working on behind the scenes, not just interviews that we're working on behind the scenes. So keep your papers popped.
I would hope that by December we can do 8 more mainline issues.
I would. One would think, but you never know. But anyways, until next week, Joe, stay sexy.
You know it, baby. You got to